This is Jonathan Yates with the University of Iowa. Welcome to the Politics of Sports. Every 4 years, the state of Iowa goes first in voting for the next president. Every day of the year, the University of Iowa is #1 when it comes to recreation and sports management, because that's the way we roll in the 319. Here with me today is Representative Amy Nielsen to talk about politics, talk about sports, and show the love in the holiday season with us. Representative Nielsen, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, it's the first question. Let's start at the beginning. How'd you get involved in politics?
I got involved in politics through my children. Things going on in their school. I started working on some school issues and then got involved in candidate campaigns, and from there it just kind of snowballed. I ran for mayor of North Liberty in 2014 and won. I was elected the first female mayor, and then when Sally Stutzman announced her retirement as our state representative of House District 77, I decided that I wanted to run for that as well. So it was a pretty quick progression up to the State House.
And so how's it been? Have you enjoyed the journey?
Absolutely, I've enjoyed the journey, but a lot of people say that I have a weird sense of enjoyment and things that excite me, but I have enjoyed it. I really enjoy campaigning. I think it's a lot of fun getting out and talking to all kinds of new people that I wouldn't normally have known, and working at the State House is very, very frustrating, but when you can get even the smallest thing done, it's incredibly rewarding.
So what are the weird things that you enjoy that surprise so many people?
Well,
that you can talk about.
Canvassing or door knocking is something that I really enjoy, and a lot of people really dread it, but walking around neighborhoods door to door, talking, just cold knocking someone's door and then talking to them about things that are concerning to them, things that are going well, things that aren't going well. I really enjoy that, and a lot of people just dread that part of a campaign. The fundraising I don't enjoy, so I am normal there. But
Now, Representative Liz Bennett, when she spoke to my class, she said that it had surprised her to find out that many people who had voted for her in her district, and she's a liberal Democrat, had also voted for Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Have you found that same phenomenon among your constituents?
Yes, I have. I was really surprised to see the amount of people in my district that voted for Trump. I outperformed Hillary in my district, which it was a huge surprise to me as well. And we saw quite a bit of that throughout the state of Iowa. Districts that went completely red, except for one, state representative, we kept in the blue, and it's just a really odd phenomenon this past election cycle, I think.
Are you sensing any buyer's remorse?
So far, I've heard a lot of, well, that's not what I thought would happen, or, well, he can't get anything done because of the Democrats. So there's a lot of the buy-in of the rhetoric out there that people are still really holding on to, but I'm not sure they're going to be able to hold on to that much longer.
How about the recent developments in Washington, D.C.? Do you see him stepping back from that too and saying, this isn't what we voted for? Thinking of sort of the sexual harassment scandals and things like that that are coming out across the country. What's
weird is that people seem to just kind of be brushing that off, and there's a huge epidemic right now of sexual harassment coming up, not only in Washington, but in state houses across the country. I was recently at a National Women Legislators Conference, and we had a session about this, and women from New Jersey, Wisconsin, Georgia, all kinds of places were talking about the harassment and just the culture of misogyny that they have to work in every day, and it's really eye-opening. We've seen all kinds of prominent people, from politicians to actors.
Both parties? Yes,
both parties, being accused of this bad behavior. And when you start to look into it and you find that, like in the Iowa House, there's an ethics committee that handles these sorts of complaints. It's made up of 5 men and 1 woman, half Democrat, half Republican, but it just doesn't, it doesn't seem to be a good idea to have ourselves policing ourselves. There just needs to be some kind of other authority. We just lost a lawsuit from just over the summer. A former staffer was harassed repeatedly. She filed a complaint and she was fired hours later. She sued, and now the state is on the hook for a $1.75 million payout to her. It's just unacceptable that the taxpayers have to pay for that. And our very first female governor's response was, well, I can't control the legislators. And there's just a real it's just a real epidemic of, turning a blind eye to bad behavior. That's because it's been going on for so long. And so I hope that we will be able to turn a corner here and start recognizing these, little things here and there as what they are. It's sexual harassment. It's a power play.
Now, this is the 45th anniversary year of Title IX, which was a landmark federal legislation that mandated equal funding for female and male sports. What have you seen that impact to be?
I think that there's been a great advancement in women's sports over the past 45 years, and I've never known what it's like to not have Title IX, which has been great for me. I think that it needed to be done. Men weren't just going to give up the lion's share of the sports world, from fans to money, and I think women have proven that they are entertaining, they're a draw, and they're good at sports. So I'm glad.
You talked about the dance team in your district.
Oh,
Done
yes.
so well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the Liberty High dance team, they won the first state championship, I believe, of Liberty High, which just opened this past fall. And
without a football team yet.
Without a football team yet, yeah. Well, I think we have one. We just don't have a stadium or really facilities. But so yeah, they don't get to go out and dance at halftime like they do at West High or City High. But for them to pull together in just a few months and be good enough to win a state championship is amazing.
And how strong was the support from the local community for the dance team?
Sure. Well, the local community is incredibly supportive of Liberty High as a whole, and to have a team. The very first season that they're in existence just do so well. I mean, I just think that it really boosted the community's enthusiasm for the school and for sports there. And I feel like the sports has been a real unifier for our community, whereas before we were all kind of spread out. Some of our students went to City, a lot of them went to West, but there was no real coming together for one kind of one thing. And so having those sports teams do so well is great. And our basketball team's off to a great start as well. So.
Now, speaking of high school sports, I brought out a Washington Post. I live on the East Coast. In the front page, they talked about a small town high school football team in the Midwest. And, the Washington Post, they sort of have the attitude they can't understand why anybody doesn't want to live in Manhattan, Pacific Heights, or Georgetown. And they were kind of surprised about this high school football team that unified the community. What's the Post missing about what a high school football team, a high school dance team, a high school volleyball team can do for a community? When Representative King talked to my office, he said that the thing that had drawn his community together was the high school basketball team going to the state championship. What's the Washington Post missing about how communities built by high school sports?
I think that they're missing what makes small Midwest towns so great and so desirable. We are smaller, and the smaller things are what we pay attention to. We're not consumed with our hour-long commutes to different places, and
I fly in once a week, so I have an 8-hour commute.
Oh my gosh,
yes.
yeah, see, that's terrible. I get upset when I have to drive more than 30 minutes. I mean, I'm so spoiled. But that everyone is really focused on their family, their children, and their friends and their children's friends. And so when they get on a team and they're playing together, that's what we like to rally around. We like to see our kids go out and perform well and have fun and be with their friends. And when they're all playing, on the football team or the basketball team or the dance team, when you look out there, you see all of them as your kids. And so, the pride and the just the hope for them is what unifies everybody together. And I guess maybe in the larger cities, there's just so many different schools maybe that they just don't experience that. And I think that is something that's unique to small Midwestern towns.
So let me ask, in my job, I travel a lot. And, when I'm in Wyoming, 3 times tell me I'm in Wyoming. Driving north on the 25, right at the Colorado border, there's a herd of buffalo in a ranch. Second thing is the wind can get to be so high that there can be trucks blown over on the side of the road. And the third thing is the radio stations play a lot of songs by AC/DC and a lot of songs by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. What are the 3 things that would let me know I'm in small town Iowa, getting ready for a great high school football game on a Friday night, and then a great University of Iowa win the next day?
You would see probably a lot of corn as you're driving through. The country station or the radio stations would more than likely be playing country music with the lead up that the game is coming next. And you're going to see most of the traffic going one direction, which is to the football stadium.
I do notice that the economic impact of the University of Iowa, the athletic director, Gary Bartis, said was over $100 million for the 7 games. Now, obviously, you love your constituents and love to help them. What do you see does their needs much, their constituent matters come to you the most?
It seems right now that the things that people are most concerned about are education. There seems to be, not just statewide, but nationwide, an attack on K through 12 and higher education. And they're concerned that their kids aren't getting the same quality education that they received as they were growing up in their small towns in Iowa, or even the bigger towns. Here in Iowa City is considered a big city to Iowans. They're concerned about that. They're concerned about the lack of access to mental health care. Iowa has been consistently ranked in the bottom 5 in all of the country as far as access to a healthcare professional or a healthcare or a mental health care bed. And they're concerned about their own just healthcare in general. The Medicaid privatization that we started a few years ago has just been an enormous failure, and people aren't getting in to see their doctors. Doctors aren't getting paid. Nursing homes are having to turn away patients because we just eliminated the 90-day retroactive eligibility rule, and people are starting to really worry about themselves and their parents and their children, and it's becoming overwhelming for many of them.
And did you notice that when you first got into politics, or is that becoming more and more frequent?
It's becoming more and more frequent. I think when I was elected mayor in 2014, obviously Medicaid wasn't something under my purview, so people tended to not talk as much about it, but throughout the time that I was campaigning in 2016 and until now, the end of 2017, it has just ramped up incredibly, and more I'm hearing from people who are having trouble with accessing their needed health care.
Do people come to you very much for matters of sports, the new stadium, other things like that too? I imagine you dealt with that a lot when you were mayor.
Not so much. Pretty much people will say, hey, did you go to the Hawkeye game? Or, you go to knock on a door and there's, Hawkeye flag with a Hawkeye mailbox, and they answer their door in their Hawkeye sweatshirt and have their lapel pins. So there's a great pride for Iowa and the Hawkeyes and what they represent, the sports teams. So I think people are very supportive of the University of Iowa here and of our sports teams. And, I think that we are a very desirable bowl team, I've heard, because our fans will travel.
Yes, that's true.
And we bring our money. So, we love our sports here in Iowa.
So has the federal tax legislation moving through Congress now, does that concern you at all?
It does greatly. The person that's going to be impacted the most by that, I've read, is the family of 4 with a sick child. It's going to be devastating to most people in Iowa. Like the median income in Iowa is somewhere around $50,000 and under. It's going to hurt the lower wage earners the hardest, the people that can't afford to pay it, and it's going to give tax breaks and tax incentives to the 1% of the high dollar earners. We've seen again and again that giving money back to large corporations in the hopes that they're going to expand their workforce doesn't work. They're not going to expand their workforce. They're not going to raise wages. They're going to hand out bigger bonuses to their executives, and they're going to have more returns for their shareholders. And they've admitted as much. So I don't know why we're continuing to pursue this line of economic development.
You were a small town mayor. Now you're in the General Assembly. Amazon, where CEO is the world's richest man, first $100 billion. I think it's 234 cities are bidding for it. Would you have done that if you were mayor? Would you have put together a package to try to lure Amazon? Would you do it now in the General Assembly? Say, hey, we need to get them to Iowa City, we need to get them to Davenport? Or do you see the cost of economic development is too much? You just never get your money back?
I think there are definitely instances where you can put together an economic development package and get your money back. I think we've seen a lot of instances where that's not the case. I think that the Apple deal that just happened in Waukee is not going to, it's not going to bring enough jobs. It's not going to raise wages. It's not going to pay off for us in the end. There are certainly things that you can do to entice businesses to come, but I really believe that what we should do is make Iowa, Iowa again, as Alec Baldwin said at our Democratic fundraiser this past week.
And what are the things that makes Iowa, Iowa? Now, I love Iowa 6 months out of the year, as you know. So what are the things that makes Iowa, Iowa?
Strong public education has always been the cornerstone of Iowa values. We need to make our schools desirable, and people want to be here. They want to raise their kids here. We need to provide access to broadband. There's 99 counties in the state of Iowa. 90 of them are seeing declining population right now, which is unbelievable.
Is it being offset by growth in the cities at all?
There's 4 counties that are actually growing, and the other 5 are staying stagnant. So there is some growth, but I think it's more of a it's not an overall growth. People are coming from those smaller counties and into the bigger counties, but so we're not gaining much population. We're just shifting.
And do you see that as an inevitable trend, or do you think through your work as a General Assembly you can reverse it?
I think we absolutely could reverse it. We need to invest in rural Iowa again. Like I was saying, broadband is just such an essential utility anymore to people. And with the jobs that we're seeing right now, the telecommuting, you can work from anywhere you choose. And if someone chooses to work in the small town in Iowa, they should be able to do that, and they can't right now. There's not reliable broadband for them to do their teleconferencing and mass information files going and coming, and that was something that our former governor had said was a priority, to get broadband to all the different corners of Iowa, but it never happened, and it's probably not going to happen anytime soon because the cost is enormous. We really missed the boat.
Now, the University of Iowa has the best recreation and sports management department in the country, but has there been any emphasis on sports as an economic development tool? Clearly, it's happening for Iowa City, over $100 million a year from the 7 games, but has there been anything in the General Assembly that, maybe we need more sports teams in Iowa? Newton was saved by the Speedway, according to Senator Chaz Allen.
I haven't heard anything. I do know that the city of Coralville is looking at sports as a way to raise their economic impact in that they're trying to get that arena built, the hockey, and bring professional hockey into Coralville. So there's definitely an awareness here in eastern Iowa that sports can play a really big role in your community and in your economy. I think it's definitely something we could explore. The problem is that in order to bring a high-profile team into the state right now, we would have to be willing to give them incentives, and we can't afford it.
Well, in my class today, The Politics of Sports, we're debating legalizing gambling for areas across the country. On Monday, that's up before the Supreme Court. What's your position? Do you think gambling should be allowed more if the Supreme Court approves it? There should be college gambling across the state of Iowa and across the country? We have casinos and riverboats.
We do have casinos and riverboats, and I know that there's a lot of online gambling opportunities, which I don't have a problem with that. I think that's it's fine. I think it could be a great revenue generator.
Have the casinos proven to be good citizens of Iowa?
I think they have. I know that there are some issues that we still do have with casinos. We'd like to see them become smoke-free because it is harmful, secondhand smoke. But they say that will really hurt their business. So it's a compromise that we're going to have to continue to work on, I think. But we do see a lot of revenue come in from the gambling.
And do the small towns in Iowa want more casinos?
I think that they do. Yeah, we've seen Cedar Rapids has been working really hard to get a casino in their area. I think Davenport just recently opened one, and I know the Riverside Casino does really well, and I can't think of any other new ones that are coming up. But I know that we're trying to get more. They're really great for the economics of a community.
In terms of talking about small town Iowa, you're one of the experts through your political offices you've held. Senator Chuck Schumer from New York, he said, forget it, the country is going to be dominated by Koch brothers and every other major corporation. But Representative Barney Frank, another liberal Democrat, he said in an interview in Men's Journal that small town America always underestimates its punching power when it comes to politics, that it can punch way above its weight class. Who do you agree with, Senator Schumer or Representative Barney Frank?
Representative Barney Frank, for sure.
Have you seen that in your tenure in office?
I have. After the 2016 election, even though people were fed up and thought, we're just going to go a completely different, non-traditional way, and we're going to elect this crazy person into the highest office of the land, we saw people come out and protest the inauguration. The day after, we had the Women's March in Des Moines. It was amazing when I see the aerial picture of the Capitol with all of those people just surrounding it. I'm so inspired. We've seen the organizations of women, the Strong Women, the Indivisibles. It was Pantsuit Nation, I think, for a while, and then they formed into something else. But there's so many organizations and people that are looking to change and help and kind of get back to the welcoming America that we were before we decided to make it great again, that I'm really inspired. And, the Koch brothers and Americans for Prosperity, ALEC, they're always going to have more money. The Republicans are always going to be able to outspend us. But what they can't do is outwork us. They cannot outwork the Democrats. They cannot outwork the small town farmers who want the best for themselves, their kids, and they're willing to go out and they're willing to work for it. We know what hard work looks like here in the Midwest, and we're not afraid of it.
Now, what are you going to say to those Trump supporters in Iowa, many of whom are women, who say the Dow just went over 24,000 for the first time in history, farm prices are high, we're exporting meat for the first time in China in over a decade, interest rates are low, the gross domestic product is now over 3%, and gas is still cheap. I remember back in 2008 when oil was 150 bucks a barrel. Now it's 50, which makes fertilizer cheaper, fuel for tractors. What do you tell them? Why should you tell them to vote against Trump?
I would say thanks, Obama, because we're still benefiting from his policies and his work. The president that we have now has not done anything to make this happen. He hasn't accomplished anything in his tenure so far in office, other than insulting other countries and bringing us to the brink of war. No, this is all a result, a leftover residual from the Obama administration. So,
now, as a state legislator, what do you think you can do to ameliorate that?
I try to get out and talk to as many people as possible and educate them, let them know that, change takes time. And so if you were expecting that in this first 11 months of this presidency that there was going to be some kind of, 180 and everything was going to just, this president was going to make everything different, it's just not the way it works. Government is slow, and sometimes that's a good thing.
Have you started to hear from people involved in sports about what the tax reform will do? It's going to do away with the tax break for season tickets. It's going to make it tougher to finance public stadiums. It's going to put a cap on what you can pay college presidents, coaches, ADs, and others like that. Have they been to you yet about what their concerns about what the tax reform will do to the sports industry in the United States?
I have not had anyone approach me about that yet.
And what about what I heard on the radio driving to studio this morning, that they're going to do away with the free tuition for summer students at the University of Iowa?
Yeah, that is a very unfortunate consequence of the underfunding that we have, that the state has been providing for the past several years, and most recently this past legislative session, the universities have taken a huge cut, and they're only going to be getting worse, I'm afraid, in the next session.
Do you think the students realize that, just sort of how their undergraduate and graduate school education is imperiled at both the state and federal level?
I don't think that the students know the full impact of that quite yet. I think that they're probably way more informed than their parents are. And I hope that the students will go home over the holiday break and over the summer and tell their parents, you know, look, this is what I'm seeing. My tuition's going to go up. We don't have this summer a program anymore. There's lab hours are shortening. There's not as much resources. Now there's, twice as many students in a class to one teacher as there used to be. It's going to take the younger people, the students who are seeing this every day, to kind of wake up, their parents' generation and make them realize that, voting Republican is harming their children.
Yeah, in my class, I have 37 students, and there are two noticeable things. Number one, there's only one from a farm in Iowa. Number two, the female students know far more about sports than I could ever hope to. Do you see those trends continuing for the state of Iowa?
Yes, I mean, I think that more and more, as more and more in the state of Iowa, there's not as many families on farms right now, so we're not producing those farm kids anymore. Our population is aging quite rapidly, and so we're just not seeing as many families staying on the farms. And as far as women knowing more about sports, why shouldn't they?
I agree. No, I think it's a wonderful thing. So the legislature goes into session in about a month. What's on your personal bucket list?
Well, I'm hoping to just stop as much harm as possible. This past session, that's really all that we were able to do is get a few of the things tweaked in the really egregious bills, like the voter ID bill, the collective bargaining, workers' comp, things like that, the gun omnibus bill. And there was some ridiculous legislation that we were luckily able to stop in subcommittee that didn't go on. So I'm hoping that we can do a little bit more stopping ridiculous things in subcommittee and then tweaking the best we can to the things that are destined to go through.
Do you think you're going to be able to protect the students at the University of Iowa at all?
I wish I could say yes. I don't know that we're going to be able to. It doesn't mean that we're sure not going to fight like hell. We're going to try the best that we can. When you are in the minority, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do. There's some things, and we will definitely do that. But I'm afraid of what's going to happen to the University of Iowa, Iowa State, UNI, and the community colleges this next session. I think that they're just in for even more cuts.
Do you think you're going to be able to accomplish anything that the universities will like? Sort of fight back from the minority position?
We will fight back from the minority position, and I think that's the best that we can do. And we talk to President Harold, frequently. Mm-hmm. He knows the position that we're in, and we rely on him for information, to use against, all of the terrible things that are happening. And that's the best we can do, and then we're going to hopefully wrap up really quick and then get out and pound the pavement for the 2018 elections, because that's really how we're going to change things.
So how about your personal plans for the holidays?
For the holidays, I am hoping to just kind of get all of the business wrapped up real quick here in the next couple weeks so that I can focus on my daughter's 18th birthday and Christmas and ring in the new year, and then, I'm gone for 4 months out of the for the next 4 months. So I'm going to try really hard to concentrate on being home and being present and just kind of celebrating with my family.
So it sounds like you got big plans for the holiday season?
Big plans of calmness and being at home and, watching movies with a cup of hot cocoa wrapped up in blankets with my family. We always like to do a movie marathon, so we'll pick a, Star Wars.
For the Christmas Carol at 7/24?
No, we do Star Wars, Marvel movies, those kinds of things. We're big fans of those action-adventure kind of things.
Well, happy holidays.
Thank you. You too.
This is Jonathan Yates from the University of Iowa, Department of Recreation and Sports Management. Happy holidays to all. Peace be with you from the 319. Thank you.